Crime and Sleepy Leela behind me. So this video I am going to just kind of compile a lot of TikTok videos. I'm trying to use different platforms and media formats and stuff. So I just finished watching the Sherri Papini and Keith Papini documentary that was on Hulu called The Perfect Wife a couple days ago, and I watched it and I was just pretty blown away about how wrong I think everyone has come to understand this case. And I just want to also say I have a background in mental health. I'm trained as a clinical psychologist and I've worked for many years in the mental health field, so that is something that is also informing my theory and opinion today. So yeah, I think I so far have made about 4 videos altogether. It's going to be a series on my TikTok channel called like Sherri Papini innocent evidence, or evidence of innocence, or something like that. But yeah, so I've had 4 videos that I made so far, and I am going to just kind of compile them together into this video, and then I still have more that I want to touch on about the case and more evidence that I want to talk about. So, but I need to take a little break from this Sherri for a second, and so I will get back to that, and I'm not sure when, but sooner than later, hopefully. But I also am going to, if you guys didn't know, be hosting a live stream today for the Brian Kohlberger hearing that's taking place. That is going to be at noon Central Standard Time, and I am going to be hosting it on a live stream on my channel here. And then also I have been spending a lot of time compiling a bunch of information and just thoughts that I have on Brent Kopacka, and I have a lot of thoughts that I want to share. So, and I have done a lot of research, and it's kind of all scattered and all over the place, so I've spent a lot of time trying to just organize my thoughts around that. But I am definitely hoping to put out that video about Brent later today. So fingers crossed, and hopefully see you guys at noon, and hope everyone is having a good day, and I hope you enjoyed this movie video, and also join the tribe, subscribe, and like. Okay, peace, love, bye. Alright, this is my first TikTok video, but I just finished watching the YouTube documentary about the Papinis, like Sherri Papini and Keith Papini, called Perfect Wife. It just came out. Anyways, like, I cannot believe it. Like, this poor woman, she seriously did not do any of that shit. She did not make that up. I mean, this woman is seriously a true victim, and I just cannot believe that so many people have, like, heard about this case and have just turned completely against her, and I feel so bad for her. Like, it is insane to me. It just seems so simple and like just plain as day to me that it's just obvious that the police like totally fucked this up, and like fuck the police and fuck the FBI with the way that they dealt with it. I mean, there's so many things wrong with how this case was dealt with, and it's crazy. Like, so anyways, my name's ACAB True Crime, and I have a YouTube channel. Follow me there, but I'm gonna keep posting here about shit that I think. Okay, hey, what's up? It is ACAB True Crime. I am coming back on to talk about the video that I posted yesterday and give a little bit more evidence about why I think that Sherri Papini is not lying, and why there is a shit ton of evidence to show that she is actually not lying, and why everyone in the entire like law enforcement community that was involved with this case should be totally ashamed of themselves, honestly. Like, I don't even think that they should be able to be employed anymore, to be honest. I mean, the way that this case was handled is just absolutely disgusting. The ball was dropped, and I actually am, teetering, twerking on the fence a little bit between whether or not these guys were incompetent or whether or not they actually had a hand in covering up this like human trafficking that was going on behind all of this. So let me just start off I guess with trying to explain why I feel these ways. So I don't know, I looked back through some of my comments yesterday, and there was like some just pretty obvious questions, and I was gonna just maybe respond to those a little bit, but I think, okay, so from the get, I think it's important to note that the police never took her seriously, and they never took her husband seriously. They always thought from the very start that Keith was lying. I mean, for like the first week, they didn't investigate this, and I don't know why they didn't. I mean, to me, it sounded like, okay, this is another problem with going into these cases with so much just skepticism from these police officers, okay? If someone's getting kidnapped, if someone literally is not with their children for weeks at a time, like, we should not be looking at that with skepticism right off the bat. We should be believing them. But right off the bat, it always seemed like they never really totally thought that this was real. And I think it was because they were hearing that, Sherri might have had a little bit of some personality issues. Like, to me, I mean, I should say also I'm like trained as a clinical psychologist, and to me, I'm not diagnosing her at all, but it sounds like she does exhibit a lot of symptoms, that go along with borderline personality disorder, maybe some other, personality disorders, definitely some histrionic traits. But that does not mean that, I mean, I get it. It's kind of like the boy who cried wolf, but guess what? Like, in that story, at the last time, like, the wolf fucking got the kid. You know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah, like, I mean, also people that are kind of, okay, people that have borderline personality disorder a lot of times, and again, I'm not saying that she has this, but a lot of people that exhibit the same type of, behaviors that she was exhibiting, like the, running away from home and, kind of looking to attach to other people to like find, her self-worth, and lying a lot, like doing things to get attention. Those are all things that are very common with people that have experienced some type of trauma in their childhood. It's usually just really bad attachment systems. And I guess I probably don't need to convince anyone here that we all know that Sherri has some messed up stuff going on. She was a compulsive liar. But I mean, again, I don't think that doesn't prove to anyone that what she was saying here wasn't true. And there's so much evidence that goes to show that she was telling the truth. So I think that is a major problem right off the bat. Also, I should say too, that when she did come back, and when she was dropped off that next, 22 days later, she said that she was scared and she didn't want to talk to the police, okay? And we have all known, like, especially seeing with these recent cases in these small towns, and just in general, like, I mean, unless you're living on a rock and you're a complete idiot, like, you should know that there's, like, a ton of corruption in law enforcement agencies. And if you don't know that, then I guess, yeah, you and I are not going to see, I'm never going to be able to convince you of whatever I'm trying to convince people of right now. So, but I will just say that, like, yeah, like, I don't know why everyone is just so apt to just right off the bat, like, believe these officers. I mean, she was saying, like, so when she was kidnapped, the captors told her, like, when she was saying something about, I can't remember exactly what it was, but the captors told her, like, your buyer, like, because she was obviously involved in human trafficking, the people said your buyer is a police officer. So, and I don't know why people wouldn't at least want to look into that, I mean, we can see all the corruption in, like, the Karen Reed case that's going on, like, the jury deliberations are going out, like, tomorrow or something, but it's just wrapping up. And I mean, basically it's been like 8 weeks of just seeing how shady the Canton Police Department was. It's definitely out there. And also Reading, where she was kidnapped from, is an area that's known really well for human trafficking. And also, I think it's super important to note that in the beginning, they were talking about this really similar case that took place just right down the street from Sherri, like in 1999. There was a woman, let me just play a little quick clip real quick about that case, because these two people, the two women, Sherri and her counterpart, who was also kidnapped 4 years earlier, they knew each other. They went to the same high school. I mean, they were both kidnapped while they were out running. Tons of similarities, and they never solved the case of the girl who was kidnapped in 1998. So, and I feel like a lot of the police do end up, they don't like it when they can't solve stuff, and they don't make it when they're made to look stupid. And again, I don't know why we're not going into cases right off the bat, like believing these victims. Okay, like it was like this woman. Everyone said that she was like a very good mother, that she was like this perfect mom. Yes, she had behavioral issues, like she had breast implants, like, she told lies, and she, like, maybe snuck around on her husband sometimes, but like that does not make anyone be, that doesn't make someone a complete insane psycho. I mean, the wounds on this woman's body are just, you can't fake them. Okay, there's just, I mean, honestly, there's so much. So let me just show you. I'll just try to, I'm like worked up about it, because I'm just like, how has this not, how are people not seeing this? It's so fucking obvious. But I'll just start with talking about with that first kidnapping case, which I definitely think is associated with Sherri, and a lot of people thought that from the beginning too. Also, if you like, I want to like challenge people to, watch just an hour-long 2020, or even one of these videos on Hulu, and go into it with an open mind, or not even, no, go in with a perspective that Sherri told the truth, and just like think about how fucking horrible this whole situation is. It's so fucked up. It's so messed up, dudes. But okay, let me show you this clip about, yeah, that other lady.
Woman case with eerie similarities. 18 years ago, a teen named Tara Smith went out for a jog just like Sherri and hasn't been seen since. The parallels are striking. The two victims look alike. Both are blonde and beautiful. They were kidnapped while jogging in Northern California, just 2 miles apart. And get this, both Sherri and Tara knew each other from childhood. They also went to the same high school, Central Valley High in Redding, California, where Tara was a member of the basketball team.
Pretty blonde girls out running close to their neighborhoods. Yeah. It did seem like deja vu.
Sherri's husband, Keith, even turned to Tara Smith's parents, Terry and Marilyn, for advice.
He knew what we had gone through, so I think that's why he reached out. He just wanted some comfort, some advice on, how to deal with that emotionally.
Their younger daughter, Kyra, also went to school with Sherri. When Sherri went missing, did you think, oh my gosh, this seems like the same nightmare all over again?
Yeah, and it was hard for me to hold on to hope, just because we never got answers with Tara. So I kind of lost hope, thinking that she was dead.
To the shock of the nation, Sherri was released by her captors 3 weeks after she went missing.
She had been beaten and was bound in heavy chains and wrist restraints when she was spotted on the side of a highway.
No one.
This is part 2 of the Sherri Papini series that I'm doing about her innocence. Don't mind me. I just got back from a run, and I have no idea what to do with TikTok, and I was like, ooh, I look kind of gross. And I was like, I'll try a filter. So anyway, so jumping right in, back to the explanation about Sherri Papini. So as I discussed in my last video, if you haven't checked it out, here's a link, if I can figure out how to put the link on there, to that video, and I discuss about another crime, abduction, that took place that was like very, very similar to Sherri Papini. And, I think that gives more evidence to her story that they are similar. A lot of people will just say, like, oh no, she just used that as, like, she was around when it happened and she knew it, so she just used it as an example of her making shit up. But it's like, also the other thing that could be true is that there is people that are abducting people, and in that area that, like, like little blonde white girls, and it's pretty weird that they both knew each other and they both got abducted. To me, that would suggest that maybe there's like a similarity between the abductors. And so, yeah, I think something else that I think is really important to note is that in Redding, the area where this all took place, it's an area that's well known for human trafficking. And as I'll show later, but Sherri was branded. And I mean, it's just, okay, like, you know, I've trained as a clinical psychologist, and I've worked with a lot of people that have like self-harming scars, behaviors. And, you know, I mentioned in another video that I did on this case that I think it was video 1 too, that I do think that Sherri, you know, might have had some borderline personality characteristics. At least that's something that you know, she seems to share similar behaviors, but that I've never ever seen anyone go to this extreme. And I don't know why we're all convincing ourselves. And like the people that have decided that instead of this being a true story, that Sherri is just lying about it, is the fucking police. It's a bunch of, you know, old white dudes and who have like, I mean, and she actually was told that the police were involved with all of this, which, you know, I mentioned again in part 1 that you know, that's not too crazy to consider. Like that probably might be an actual thing. Anyways, the wounds that she had on her body were so extensive. It would be seriously so difficult for someone to do that to themselves. I mean, I know that the dude that she ended up like getting like found saying that it was like her ex that she convinced to do all this stuff. It's just, that is such a ridiculous story to me. I mean, we'll get into that in another video after I go over some of these like beginning factors, but I again, like, you know, Occam's razor or whatever the fuck you call that thing, it's like, you know, the easiest explanation is probably the right one. And I don't know why we're all trying to do these like mental gymnastics to try to make sense why this woman would do this. Like, I mean, I don't think there's many reasons why she would. What actually would make more sense is that like she experienced something that a lot of other women in that same area had been documented to experience, and similar women that are like very close to her and similar to her. And I think that, you know, there's more evidence that I'll get into a little bit later, but I think it just even like, instead of exonerates this guy that took her, I think it actually like, you know, adds weight to her story being true. So anyways, I'm just going to play this little video real quick about the similarities between Sherri's abduction and her wounds. The other thing that I want to say too is like, I mean, if you hear just in her voice in these calls, and like she has kept up this facade. I mean, if she was actually making this shit up, she would have had to fake this shit for so long. People with borderline personality disorder do not have the patience to keep up. Like, you know, they're all over the place. Like, she has stayed consistent with all of her stories. Nothing has changed. I mean, the only thing that's weird is like police are kind of like, oh, this story isn't normal. Like, we don't, I mean, it's like, well, sorry, dudes. Like, sometimes not every single crime is going to fit exactly to a T what you think it is. You know, sorry to challenge you a little bit. And I have a theory about this case too, about why I think it really does make, why it really kind of is a different case. But I mean, the police didn't even consider looking into these different alternative theories. They just, for some reason, right off the bat, I think because they, you know, were reading through her journals and being like, oh my God, you know, it's almost like the Scarlet Letter, like, dear God, she was cheating on her husband. She didn't even fucking cheat on her husband. She was texting someone. You know, that does not mean that someone's a total fucking, you know, insane person that's going to go do all these horrible, I mean, she would have had to be repeatedly beating herself for weeks in order to have had these wounds. Like, that's not like something that makes no sense. It makes no sense. And I know everyone's like, well, yeah, that's why she's so crazy. And it's like, how about we just like give her the benefit of the doubt and like look at it from a perspective like that she is telling the truth, and this all makes a ton of sense. It's just, it's so weird, you guys. Okay, so I'm going to put that little clip about the human trafficking thing, and then I will continue.
A motive as to why 2 women kidnapped Sherri Papini, but outside experts watching this case suggest a very chilling motive. Sherri Papini endured 22 days of terror, beaten and chained, her hair chopped off, her skin branded. Her suspected kidnappers, 2 armed Hispanic women who spoke mainly in Spanish and concealed their faces. Their motive, authorities say, still a mystery.
We do not know if she was a specific target or if this was a random abduction.
That's trafficking. Absolutely.
But NBC News spoke to multiple experts not involved in the sheriff's investigation who believe this case has classic signs of human trafficking.
I thought trafficked. As soon as I heard branding, oh, that's the number one thing that we look for in a traffic victim is a brand.
Rebecca Bender is a national expert on human trafficking and a former victim.
Yeah, I've been branded twice by my traffickers.
Can you show us one of them?
Yeah, this is my one.
She theorizes the kidnappers mistook the young-looking Papini for a teen, the typical target of traffickers, then panicked when seeing her face on the national news.
I think when so much publicity started coming, they probably were like, we got to get rid of this girl.
Experts say the area near where Papini was abducted, known as the Emerald Triangle, is a hotbed for drug cartels and sex rings.
This is where we believe Sherri was taken from.
Private investigator Bill Garcia worked with Papini's family during her disappearance and specializes in sex trafficking cases. He says her Spanish-speaking captors and their MO are signatures of Mexican cartels.
The chains as opposed to zip ties or handcuffs, the brutal beating, and the hair, these are all earmarks of something that I've seen happen south of the border.
This as Papini's husband reveals new details about her struggle to get help after her captors released her, speaking to ABC News.
She's screamed so much, she said she was coughing up, like blood from the screaming, trying to get somebody to, stop.
His decision to talk about the case not sitting well with law enforcement.
I do think that with some of the details that he has provided, it could affect the integrity of the investigation.
The sheriff won't comment specifically on whether this is a case of human trafficking, but experts theorize that the two women who kidnapped Sherri Papini may be slaves themselves. Matt and Savannah.
All right, Gotti Schwartz. Gotti, thank you very much.
Hello, Today fans.
Hello, this is ACAB True Crime. I am in the middle of my series of videos about why I believe that Sherri Papini is not guilty and providing evidence to go along with my theory that she's not guilty. And yeah, so if you haven't checked out my other videos, please go check those out. I believe I have 2 or 3 more, 2 or 3 before this one. But this video is going to focus mostly on the aspect of the crime that I don't find very feasible and I don't think makes a lot of sense, which is just the severity of her trauma and physical and mental and emotional, and just the extent of this hoax that she would have to put on. I mean, really, it comes down to like I don't know how do you say that thing, but Occam's razor, the easiest, explanation is usually the correct one. So I think we'll just start off right off the bat with, so far we haven't heard anything. Like if you think about the crime, all of a sudden she disappears. We don't hear from her for 22 days. And then all of a sudden we find out that she has been dropped off at the side of the road and she gets brought to the hospital. So I'm going to spend most of this video just kind of talking about and playing different incidents and showing pictures of the extent of her injuries and some recordings of the actual people that were there that day and what their accounts were of it, and then discuss that on the flip side. So I will play that video right here.
The police search for Sherri when in the pre-dawn hours of Thanksgiving morning, 150 miles south of Reading, a driver spots a woman in distress on the side of the highway.
911 emergency, what are you reporting?
Hi, I have an emergency. There's a lady on the side of the road needing help. She's chained up, her vision's blurry, and she needs an ambulance.
Do you see her chained up?
Yes, her name is Sherri Papini.
Sherri is taken to the hospital where her clothing gets processed and sent out for DNA testing.
Looking at her injuries at the hospital, I was shocked by them. For it to be all over her face, her arms, her legs, and her chest and her back was just alarming.
Sherri told investigators that her kidnappers told her that she was going to be sold to someone as part of a sex trafficking ring.
She tells detectives she was kidnapped and physically abused by 2 Hispanic women.
I think she may have teased me. I don't remember. The next thing I remember is all my clothes were gone.
Police were pretty shocked to find that Sherri had been branded on the upper right portion of her back.
And they said I was branded. That's what they said. That's what it hurts so bad.
Sherri Papini has endured 3 weeks of beating, and abuse, and torment. Then after all that, the kidnappers let her go. Sherri says she has no idea why they...
Okay, so that's pretty interesting. And at this point, you know, I am just wondering, like, why the police are questioning the story. It seems like there's just a lot of things going on that align with the fact that it might be true. Just everything that I've shown so far. So, also, another really important factor, I think, that everyone just really kind of tends to just, I don't know, write off that she's, you know, nuts or something. And, you know, I've mentioned previously, I've worked with a lot of people that have different mental health issues. And the fact that, I mean, people that self-harm do not act like that. They do not sustain they don't go and sit in a room for 3 days, no, 3 weeks, and beat the shit out of themselves the entire time. Like, that doesn't happen. You know what does happen is when people get kidnapped and beaten, like this guy in the last video talked about, like, they end up with really severe wounds and trauma, and everything that we have seen and heard in this case really aligns perfectly with that, you know? And I mean, people are going to say, well, oh my gosh, she's like this evil genius. She must have done all this research. And it's like, why are we assuming that about her? You know, I mean, she's like, look at these wounds. Like, okay, even if, so out of every single case that is brought to police, you know, the percentage of false claims is 5% across the board. It does not matter like what type of crime it is, whether it's SA or whether or not it's burglary. Across the board is 5%. So I don't, you know, especially when it comes to cases that are so sensitive, like this case where a woman was literally stolen away for 3 fucking weeks and tortured and was about ready to be sold into trafficking and branded. Like I just feel like if there's going to even be 5% of the people that are making that up, it's worth it to just treat them like with some dignity and respect, and just so we enter every situation believing people, because it's like hugely problematic that if anyone had gone through anything, like let's say Sherri did make all this stuff up, which is just, you know, would be really hard to do. I mean, I watched the 3-part documentary yesterday on that Hulu, and it's what Keith described is just to a T, like, I mean, someone who's experienced like extreme trauma. And you know, you can sit here and say she memorized like all of the DSM's like criteria, but to put on that act and to stay that consistent, I mean, if someone is like dealing with borderline personality disorder, or if they have different symptoms and traits, you know, that's one thing, but they're all over the place. You know, they're not consistent, and it's usually like they decide one thing and then it's like 2 days later they're on some other kick, you know, and her story has stayed the same the entire time. And I will address the confession factor in probably the next video, but I don't think that that's relevant at all. I mean, we know lots of people make false confessions, and well, I guess I will address it here real quick, but she was looking at 25 years to go to prison, and she was obviously not trusting the police for good reason, and she just wanted it to be over with. And at this point, even her husband, like the police had like turned her husband against her too, so this poor woman just has like nowhere to turn. I mean, she probably felt the safest to just not try to keep messing with it. And a lot of people do that. We know a lot of people do that. They take plea deals because they're afraid to bring it to trial. And like fear that they're gonna get something really extreme, you know. And she thought that she was only gonna be looking at like 6 months with a ankle bracelet, but the judge was such a fucking asshole, and he's like, "This is such a, you know, a tragedy that you did this, and I'm gonna put you in prison for 18 months." So now this woman is in prison for 18 months after she just got kidnapped and tortured and is having no one have her back. You know, she doesn't have a solid family system. It's, you know, growing up, it was like a rough family life, and it sounds like she had really found her stability within her family with Keith. I mean, it's just crazy. So anyways, I'll just show you a couple of the pictures that I think really do help to prove, like, I mean, when people don't fake these types of wounds. I mean, it's like, you know, I dare anyone to find me a case, or not even dare. Well, yeah, dare, but like, you know, please, someone find me another case where someone has done this extreme of bodily harm to themselves just for attention. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, it literally, I've never heard of it happening ever. And like I said, I'm trained as a clinical psychologist, but, okay. Also, you know, I think, so yeah, I'm going to just play this little clip about a woman who was one of the first people that saw her when she got out of captivity, and she was dropped off in the middle of nowhere. And this is what her experience was. And I think that we should, you know, again, approach these things where we're like trusting and believing people's instincts and not being like, oh my gosh, that Sherri just duped everyone. You know, I mean, she was just so good at faking these things. Like, it's like that, it doesn't make logical sense. It's like really surprising actually that the police were able to convince like an entire like society of this. Like, it's fucked up. Okay, so I'll play that clip right now here.
Frantic and desperate.
This woman is describing the moment she saw a terrified Sherri Papini waving down motorists on a desolate stretch of highway.
And that's actually the thing that has haunted me the most about this, is the look in her eyes.
Allison Sutton was the first person to call 911 after spotting the mom from Northern California whose 3-week disappearance captivated the nation. Allison is returning to the scene for the first time.
It's overwhelming.
It was 4 a.m. last Thanksgiving along Interstate 5 near Sacramento.
At night, it's dark out here. It's black. There's no lights out here. She was out in the cold in a t-shirt. And I remember thinking, she's got to be freezing because it was cold.
She was battered. Her long blonde hair was cut off. She was an emaciated 85 pounds. Sherri told investigators that she'd been abducted by 2 mysterious women as she was jogging along this road near her home. Yesterday, nearly a year after her disappearance, sheriffs released a sketch of the suspects and shared the 911 call made by Sherri's husband, Keith, right after she went missing.
So I'm like totally freaking out, thinking like somebody grabbed her.
But skepticism about Sherri's story has been widespread. Was there any question in your mind that this woman was in need of help?
None whatsoever.
With so many people questioning whether this is a hoax or she was actually kidnapped, what do you believe?
I believe that it was real. I believe that she was kidnapped.
Now the woman who called 911 says she feels terrible that she didn't stop to comfort the mom. Instead, she kept driving after calling police on her cell phone.
I would like to hug her and tell her that I'm sorry.
Okay, so I think this video has gotten, oh, thank you, Leila, will address more specifically and show and talk about a little bit more of her wounds, and also the person that they ended up choosing to believe over her like actual, you know, proof, physical evidence, and DNA proof along with it too. You guys, it's crazy. So
hello, welcome back to ACAB True Crime, the newest and coolest TikTok true crime channel. This is ACAB True Crime, and I will be continuing to talk about why I think that Sherri Papini is innocent and how she got royally screwed over in this whole deal. And I have a couple of other videos that I previously put out, so check those out if you're interested. But I think in this video, what I'm going to do is present to you kind of the two different running theories that the police had to choose from in this case, and kind of, let you guys decide what you would have chosen. So we'll start with my theory, which is that Sherri was telling the truth and that she was actually kidnapped. So, with that being true, I think it's really important to see the evidence that goes along with that. So, I'm going to start talking about that right here.
Pictures of Sherri's injuries from when that first day that she got back. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so here's a picture of her from when they actually got her in the morning. I mean, you can see she's just beside herself. I mean, yeah, someone could fake that, but also, like, if she wasn't faking it, she also looks like she's majorly just traumatized. Okay, here is another one. Okay, so here's another one. This is of her branding. You can see this is old. I mean, that's super scabbed over. And I mean, if you compare it to the woman that they showed in 2 videos ago, the clip that I showed, it's pretty similar. And I just, people, why would she? Okay, this is a vain woman. They're supposedly saying that she's this vain woman who, like, is so beautiful and, like, isn't getting enough attention and all this stuff. Why would she choose to make herself just be, like, super fucked up and all tore up? Like, I mean, you think that a woman who is, like, vain wants this on her body for the rest of her life? I mean, that's a fucking scar for the rest of her life. Like, that's nuts. People don't fucking do that to themselves. And look at the rest of these things, too. Okay, here is her chains. Look at how big of a chain that is. I mean, she was chained to, I think I chose a video where it plays the description of, like, how she was found. Maybe not. But she was chained to her wrists and to her ankles, to her middle part. And then, like she said, in the car, her one wrist was tied to something inside the car, and then the other one was, like, on her. And so when they pushed her out of the car, they untied her one arm, and they found her like this. I mean, this is intense. Like, I mean, people, like, this is such an elaborate scheme for no reason. The woman, they said that she was super happy. I mean, what made them even think that she wanted to get out of the relationship because she was texting one guy that she wasn't even trying to meet up with? She actually turned him down that night. I mean, she did say, hey, if you're around, like, I could still meet up. And he's like, oh, no, I already got a flight back. Like, but it wasn't like she was trying to, like, I mean, he was like, you could come meet me halfway, like, probably at, like, it sounded like a hotel or whatever. And she turned him down. So, like, obviously this woman wasn't, like, super that unhappy. This is super extreme just for attention. People don't do this shit for attention, and especially research it so perfectly and put on all of the behaviors for years and years of PTSD and scar themselves for the rest of their lives. I mean, it's just, it blows my mind that people are just accepting this and not questioning. The only thing that is going against her word is some doofus fucking cops who, like, have, are either a part of it or have no fucking clue. Like, you know what I mean? Why are there not professionals working with her immediately? Like, you can tell, and you hear her when she goes to the hospital, she's fucking scared. She has not seen her husband. She even says that. She's like, I have not seen anyone I know. I mean, she has just been kept, up. And that's, like, wrong with a lot of the shit with the police in general, is, like, they don't think about how to deal and empathize with people who are major victims. Like, they don't, like, I mean, it's always just like, oh, but we need to do this, we need to do that. And it's like, okay, but aren't we here for, like, the well-being of the people? Like, I mean, give this woman her husband. Like, someone give this woman a hug. Like, can you imagine just this, like, huge ordeal that she just went through? I mean, it's just crazy to me that people are just accepting this. Okay, let me show you a couple more pictures. Okay, here is a thing about her, like, being chained up that's, like, on her wrist. I mean, that looks... I mean, I don't even know where you could find something like that. Like, if she wanted to do that, why not just get zip ties? Like, that's way fucking easier. You know, it's like, why would she specifically be like, go get this because she wanted to set up the Hispanic population? It's kind of like, no, there are, like, cartels. I mean, it doesn't make us all racist when shit happens. Like, you know, there's, like, white supremacists. There's people that are, like, white men that are cops or, like, that are correctional officers that are white supremacists and are, like, you know, kind of working against the rest of the United States. That we can call that a spade a spade. That doesn't mean that we're, like, you know, against all white people. No, it's just a fucking fact. Like, she's describing real life things that they actually say in her area is common, and that she has a crime that is super similar to someone else that it's never been solved and she's never returned. I mean, are they going to say, like, are they going to say that that woman just did it because she wanted to run away? I mean, she was like a girl. Like, I just don't understand, like, why, again, we're all just doing these mental gymnastics to try to, like, explain that this woman just... The rationale and the motive makes zero sense. And people are like, well, yeah, crazy people don't make sense. And it's like, you know, usually there is a little bit, unless you're, like, have schizophrenia and there is, like, you have other voices going on in your head, or you are just not based in reality at all, which I think, you know, it sounds like she was 100% based in reality. She just had behavioral issues where she lied a lot, you know? So, this is, you know, going super far with these things. Okay, let me show you more. Okay, so here's more. Look at these huge fucking bruises. And they're yellow. I mean, these are different stages of bruises. She looks beat the fuck up. And, you know, like, it just... People don't do that to themselves. Like, if people self-harm, you know, maybe they'll punch themselves in the face once or something. Or maybe they'll, like, you know, do a little, like, you know, cutting. But to have this extensive all over... you know, I've never heard of that happening to someone ever. You know, maybe during a manic episode or something, but this was a 3-week long period, and these are, like, different lengths of bruise periods. Like, there's some that look a lot more fresh than others. I mean, this is obviously something that she's been enduring for multiple weeks, you know, 22 days. And actually, like, in the next video, I'll address just the huge problem with the narrative that they have around her captor. But when they do go and talk to him and get his statement, one of his stories that he tells them is that, it was like that day she was like, I want to go home, bring me home. And he was like, okay. And she's like, well, first, like, go buy this branding thing and beat me up a bunch. And he was like, okay. And everyone's like, wow, like, what a good friend that he would do that for someone. Not many friends would actually do that to someone. It's like, no, dudes, like, fucking friends wouldn't actually fucking do that. You know what I mean? Like, duh. It's, hello, people. Okay, let me show you more. Okay, this is, like, part of her scabbing from the branding here. I mean, that's a real intense burn. I mean, she is scarred, you know, and again, like, if you compare it to the other video with the trafficking victim, you know, very similar. Like, why are we not... This is, you know, okay. Okay, here's another one. Like, ow. Also, like, the other thing is, like, she weighed 87 pounds. She had lost 15% of her body weight. Like, she had cut off all of her hair. Someone that is vain doesn't do that. Look at this picture. It, like, she has this scab that's obviously from being chained up for weeks. I mean, that is a normal scar. Look at, it's from where that little tie is in the front. Obviously was resting on her arm. Like, do you really think she sat there for 3 weeks just because she was bored with her husband and wanted to get away from her children? Like, no, she, like, has never shown that she wants to get away from her children. And, like, after all this, she showed that, like, all she wanted was her husband. So, like, where did her motive go after all of that? None of this makes sense. Okay, here's another one of her bruises on her face. Look at her nose, the side of her face. I mean, she has, like, a huge... I mean, maybe that's her, like jawbone or cheekbone sticking out because she was so skinny. Or maybe it was because she got hit. I don't know, either way. But it's, like, definitely protruding. I mean, she looks rough. I mean, okay. I got cut off. So I'm just going to finish up real quick, like I said. So here's another picture of her shackled by her feet. And yeah, I'm going to get in the next video talking about my explanation and theory for her kidnapper. But okay, I'll just finish showing these pictures real quick. Okay, here is another one where she also got this really weird rash, and I can't remember like how they explained it. Maybe some type of clothing that she was wearing, or like some cleaning that she had to do or something. But again, like, who would just do that to themselves? I mean, she tortured herself. People don't torture themselves. Like, literally, that does not fucking happen, people. Like, hello. Okay, so here's another one. Again, she, to me, looks traumatized. I mean, people can sit here and be like, oh, she was a good actor, and she, you know, took the time to find all of these things and behaviors and memorize everything so it would have to fit perfectly into a storyline of what an actual victim would look like. Why are we choosing to believe that over the fact that she is an actual victim? Like, look at these fucking bruises. She looks scared in this picture, you know? Like, a lot of people, like, I've never heard of her being a good actor. Like, we never heard that we know she lied a lot, but we didn't know that she was, like, you know, faking mutilation and self-torture. Like, that, you know, I've never really heard of anyone doing that, you know, unless it's like for a cause, like, you know, those monks that like set themselves on fire or whatever. But okay, let me just finish showing you these last few pictures. And here's another one. Okay, and here's her legs. Look at her knee too. Yeah, these bruises look old to me. Here's another one of her legs. As I mentioned before, she was like completely emaciated. She weighed 87 pounds. I mean, again, someone that was so vain, like, why would they go to that extreme? It makes zero sense, you guys. Okay, so you guys, that is the one side of the story, that Sherri was kidnapped and horribly beaten up, and then we believe her, and, you know, it sounds like she was like definitely showing a lot of the symptoms of PTSD, and I'll get into that, I think, in another video that I'll do tomorrow, where I address how they actually ended up finding this guy. But I'll just briefly go over it here because that is the other side, the other theory that I want to tell you guys. So okay, so after Sherri got home, like, the police definitely like were still not believing her at all. And they ended up finding some DNA on some of her clothes. Well, they ran it through CODIS and it didn't match anything. And then they apparently, I think, and I'm interested in learning more about what they actually did with this IgG, because that, I think, is another huge, like, almost thing that was like illegal that they did in this case to Sherri. But anyways, they have this piece of DNA, and they were able to actually match it to a family. And then they find out that someone that's related to this DNA that they have is like Sherri's ex-boyfriend. And to me, I'm like, if I found that out, I would just immediately go to this dude's house and like arrest him. You have his DNA. Like, what else, I mean, do you need to, like, I mean, that's probable cause. But no, instead, what the FBI and the fucking, you know, brilliant dudes at whatever police department this is, Shasta something or other, they decide to show up to this guy's house, her ex-boyfriend, and they already had it in their mind that, you know, I guess I don't know what they had in their mind, but they definitely did not think that Sherri was a victim. I mean, I think they knew that she knew him, and, you know, just what had happened. And I mean, I want to listen to that interview again. I heard it's like 3 hours long or something, but I have a theory about that too. But anyways, so instead of going and just arresting this guy, like what they should have done, because they have the DNA of this person, they end up showing up to this dude's door and asking him just wanting to have a conversation, and like giving him the opportunity to completely explain himself, and they fucking believed him. And do you want to see? Let me show you the picture of the dude that they're believing over all of this evidence that I just showed you guys, and all these pictures and all of like the similarities that I found in the other cases that are in the previous videos that I have. Okay, let me show you who they are choosing to believe. You guys, this is the guy that they believed over all of that shit that I just showed you. They walked up to this dude's door. They found out, I mean, they saw where she was kept. She had a very specific description of where she was chained up for 22 days. And they found that because he lost his bird or some shit. And they just let him talk their ears off. And he basically, first he denied it for an hour, but then he ended up just being like, well, yeah, actually, she wasn't happy with her husband, and so she asked me to come pick her up. I mean, it's just so, and then she made me give her all of those bruises and, you know, physical injuries like the day before she left, which is obviously not true if you see like the state of the bruises on her. I mean, look at this fucking dude. You know what I mean? And it's like they found his DNA. Well, they know that she dated him in 2002. The chick that got kidnapped from Reading that looked like exactly like her, that they knew each other and they went to high school with, she was kidnapped in 1998. So if Sherri Papini was like dating this guy in 2002, that means that they probably overlapped. I mean, I'd be curious to know how, like, where this guy came from and if they did have any interaction or overlap. But either way, you know, it's probably makes sense that his family would maybe be around the area, like where he was hanging out to meet Sherri and stuff. So, and it's not like he didn't come from a very good background either. I mean, they said that he was like abusive towards her, I think. Like when they did date, they didn't confirm that, but yeah. And he just is like, nope, she's just a liar, you know. And it's like, yeah, we know that, but like you know, kidnapped her. So I'm gonna get more into at the next video, kind of my get down into the nitty gritty about my theory about how I think it all played out with the DNA and kind of where his role was and all of that. But I'm just gonna wrap up this video here, and hopefully you guys can start to see a little bit of what I'm talking about. Okay, peace and love, bye. I'll wrap this one up here. Again, this is ACAB True Crime. Please like and follow me. Super awesome. I think I'm gonna post some of these videos, like combine them into maybe one YouTube video or something. I don't really know. And if you guys are interested in Idaho 4 case, I am planning on putting out a video later today on Brent Kopacka. So check that out. I think I will just be doing that on my YouTube channel, but either way, thank you for listening. If you're still listening, I appreciate you very much. And Leela and I will talk to you guys later. Okay, peace, love, bye.